And then if a kid is getting two different ones, they're getting confused because they're like, my teacher's telling me this is and then like then if a mom or a dad is going, C says, C or something, because it's just like, who knows, and then like they're like the letters make two different sounds. So if they're really focusing on one sound and not the other sound, and it's maybe not the more common sound,
right? Which one they're learning with the smaller words now,
or they're trying to teach them to read before they know the sounds, because that is hard too. They need to know. That's why it's so important for them to go to preschool, because they will learn the sounds, because in kindergarten now they're basically starting to read.
Well, they are. And you know what? What's crazy?
You can't read. Sorry, real quick. You cannot read until your kid knows their sounds. I'm sorry. It won't work.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of She's Got It Together. I'm your host, Jessica.
And I'm Samantha. Each week, we peel back the curtain on what it really looks like to have it together.
From the messy moments to the milestones, we're here to share it all.
So grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's dive into today's topic.
Okay, today we're going to chat about education and your little ones. And by education, I kind of mean like, when do you think we should start, or when should you start working with them at home, or getting them into, a group or some type of, preschool / daycare, like all those things. Because I know from when I started my kids, it was like right off into kindergarten. There really wasn't anything anything. It was just kindergarten. So I see now, like, it's very, very common to have them in, like a pre-K program, or doing things at home, or, like Montessori does different things much earlier. So I'm curious, Sam, since you are the teacher here, what you think about all this, and kind of, where are you with Bo even? Like, what are you thinking? Have you thought about it yet?
Yeah, I've thought about it, and I just from like my background, like as a teacher, I was a pre-K teacher. I might have like a different opinion than some people, but I think my opinion's changed a little bit since I've had Bo, because like now that, when I was a teacher, I'd be like, yeah, like get them in like a 3-year-old program, get them in, pre-K, take them, and then if you can, like do young 5s and then do kindergarten. So like that was me from like my teacher hat on when I didn't have kids. And so then now that I have Bo, I'm like, I just want him home with me all the time.
Don't want to do and school yet.
Well, and I feel like, unfortunately, like school has changed so much. Like, and that is one thing too, that like, if it was like back when I was in like elementary school, I feel like things were a little easier. Like there wasn't, as much like
then. Like we learned the alphabet in kindergarten.
Right. And like you were gluing Cheerios on the letters and like stuff like that. Now it's completely different. Right.
Yeah,
so schools changed so much from like an education and like curriculum standpoint, but then there's just so much going on in the world, now with schools and shootings and violence and like all that stuff, which puts another spin on it. Right. Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like my opinions have changed a little bit on that too. So like with Bo, like I was all like, before I had him, I was like, yeah, like probably get him in like a half day, like 3-year-old program a few days a week. And then definitely pre-K, like all day,
Right.
And then like, kindergarten, his birthday's in October. So I'm all about, no matter what, he's going to go to young 5s, because he's just going to be too young, and like developmentally, like he won't be ready. Even if he like seems ready, like there's going to be a point where he like hits like a developmental block in some grade at some level, because he's just developmentally not ready, because he's going to be younger than a lot of the kids there. So I already know, like, I'm like, he's going to young 5s. But then I was like, I really don't think I want to put him in a 3-year-old program. I want him home with me while he's still so little, and I can work with him at home. Like, I know what to do. I have the tools. So luckily, like, I can work with him at home if I want to. Yeah. And then I will probably like take him to different like programs at the library or things like that. Have him
Right,
engage with other
activities.
kids at,
Yeah.
just take him to other activities, but not have him like necessarily enrolled in a like
Structured
program.
Yeah.
But then once he gets to like preschool age, I'll definitely put him in preschool. And then usually like depending on the program, you can do full day or half day. So I feel like we'll probably decide that when the time comes,
Yeah,
because he is
like
going to
he
go to
does.
young fives. I know that already. So that's like basically kindergarten. It's just at a little bit of a slower pace.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can kind of cater it per kid, like what their
Yeah.
needs are. And then, so I mean, I could do like half day preschool with him if I wanted to. And then he's in full day or like young fives.
Well, I
and
mean,
then,
half of the day is like nap time when you do full day.
Right.
for
Well,
preschool.
even me as a teacher, like the majority of the learning is in the morning.
Yeah.
Then they have lunch, they have nap, they get up, they do a lot of like the free play, which they do learn a lot during that too, and just like social, emotional skills and things
Yeah.
like that, which is very important.
Sharing, like all
Yeah.
those
So
little things.
I mean that's important too, but your main like curriculum focus tends to be in the morning a lot of the time, because that's when they're like most
Fresh.
aware and fresh, and they're not tired, and like as the day goes on, like behaviors come out, like people are ready to go home, like your patience is thin.
I like it.
So I mean, I really haven't, and obviously like this could change when the time comes, like I have another baby coming, so maybe I am going to want him, more help, and having him in a program if that's more
Right.
helpful for me. I find a lot of times like parents need like a source of daycare, so that's why
Yeah.
they will put them in a program a little
Yeah.
earlier.
I think so.
And like if you need that, that's totally valid. But if you don't, like for me, like I work from home, I can keep him home, or maybe I'll have a babysitter come to the house a couple days a week if I need help or something like that, instead of putting him in a program or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's just all like personal preference, and like what your experiences have been in school, I think play a role in it. Like just like today's like society and what's going on with school, a lot of people are choosing to homeschool their kids now, or they like go in with other families and hire a teacher, like, and they like teach their kids,
Right.
So
Right.
there's a lot of different ways school looks now. And so I think right now I'm totally fine keeping him home with me as long as possible. And then I think once he gets to be like 4, like he'll be, that's the other thing though. It's like he'll turn 4 in October. So if he'll still be 3 if I like put him in preschool like too early. So then, but then he turns, 5 and has to do young 5. So it's like he would have to do preschool a few months at 3.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
he would. Yep. He would.
unless I like really get him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's end of October. So it's like,
Right.
the timing with him, you can either push them when they're a little earlier or keep them back a
Yeah.
little bit. And like right now, how hard school is and the just amount of things that they're expected to know, I'm fine keeping him.
Yeah.
Like just like he's not going to start
You'll
kindergarten.
have to see
until
how
he's-
he is too when he gets to that
Yeah.
point or closer, to see like, is he, learning like he should be, or, are there things that he needs to be working on more? I mean,
Yeah.
I noticed that with both my girls, they're very different, and obviously Taylor needed
Well, and
more
I feel
help.
like they can be like super ready in one area and then they're not in another. So even if you keep them, and I don't even like to say hold back because they're not being held back. They're just like they're just starting school at a developmentally
you're
appropriate
in
age.
right,
But
I'd
it's
say
like
you're in between anyway, so
yeah, you're in between. So you can either choose to send them early when they're not necessarily ready, or you could wait till they are ready. And then
'cause you
some
guys,
kids,
you and
some
Sid
kids are ready, but that
graduated at
yeah.
17 because you started
was-
early.
This is another thing, was our experience was we were so young when we graduated high school. We were 17 and
Crazy.
and so it was, went all the way through college, not
Being
21,
super young. Right.
being super young. We drove later than everyone else. Like we weren't 18 with everyone else. Like it was
Yeah.
just hard
Yeah, that makes
because
a
you are
difference when you're
so
older.
young. And just like the maturity level when you graduate high school and go into college, it's like your just maturity level is not there. And we went to community college the first year because our parents knew like you are not ready to go off to a 4-year college. Like, no. So that's the other thing. It's like he will be graduating high school at 17 and be later than Sid and I. Like, we were August, he'd be end of October. So he's even younger. So there's just so many things that can happen. Like, you could get, you know, we know they're probably going to be drinking at college. So it's like you're worried about being safe, like MIPs, getting in trouble. Like, you have so much more of a window of time where you're not like the drinking age or you're not 18 and you're doing all these things. But then on the flip side of it, okay, he's going to be the oldest kid, most likely, or one of the oldest kids in his class. He's driving first. He's 18, his senior year of high school. You know, so you have more adult problems that you could get into because you are an adult, you are 18. But at the same time, he'll be, hopefully, and then, you know, boys are more immature, you know, like they need more time. So it's like, okay, he's just going to have more time to, you know, grow up a little bit, get that maturity, and then like go into adulthood ready. Not like us where we were like these little babies that were not ready for the wild, you know.
And you were young.
Yeah. So it's just like my experience. And then like a lot of people, I think, one, there wasn't a lot of Young 5 programs available before, and it just wasn't done. Like, if you thought they were ready and like, if you thought they were ready and the school let them in, like, they took them. You know, there wasn't as much, like, thought about a Young 5s program or making sure they're, like, necessarily ready developmentally or socially or whatever it is. Now there's a lot more programs for Young 5s. There's a lot more awareness, and
it's
I just remember
expected now. I feel like too, as just part of the grade levels almost.
Well, like, before it's like you can't get into, like, not everybody can get into Young 5s just because you want to get them in Young 5s.
Yes.
Like, you have to have a young birthday. There has to be like a developmental, you know, reasons. Something. There's a reason, and there's only so many spots in a Young 5s program.
Yeah,
so
it's
like
in public schools, like, you know, obviously with other. It's different.
Yeah. And I have no idea how any of that works because I've only ever done public, so I don't know. But like, as far as like Young 5s goes, it's like usually before they go to kindergarten, like if you've gone to preschool, there's usually like a recommendation from the preschool teacher. Yeah. And then you go to like the kindergarten roundup, you know, and then they'll test them to see where they feel like they can go. But ultimately, it's the parents' decision where they go. And then, you know, based on room and birthday and developmental need, like, you may or may not get into Young 5s, or you can go to another program maybe at a different school if this one's full. But then you got to like transport, and that's like a whole other thing.
Yeah, I know.
But there's no busing here, but there's busing here. And
See, so that's another thing, though. Would you want your young child like that on the bus?
I mean, we did. Mom took us. But she just said this the other day.
You didn't do like Young 5s or Young 4s.
I think it just depends. Well, with my school, with pre-K, there was no busing. Like, parents had to drop them off.
Okay.
But in fact, I don't even know necessarily how that works with tuition, whether they ride the bus or not. I know with like the special education kids, they rode the bus, and they had busing. Our program didn't. But anyways, it's like we were going to kindergarten, and Mom was worried about us riding the bus, and then we like said no, we're riding the bus to school on the first day. So she followed in her car to school to make sure we got in the school. Yep. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the other thing. I probably would drive him if I could, and then. You know, maybe as he got older and more aware, I would. But I mean, kids do it all the time. There's people there to help them.
They do.
They have tags on their backpack, but it's just that
safety patrol there to help.
Well, it's like relinquishing control. I mean, that's like your baby that you have like taken care of and kept safe, and now you're letting other people do that, and it's hard. And I think at this day and age, it's even harder just with like how the world is, and unfortunately, like how much stuff has been happening in school where kids are supposed to feel safe and parents are supposed to feel safe sending their kids to school. So I think that's like another element of it that makes it a little trickier. But I don't know. I think right now, I would just do preschool for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then whether it be a full day or a half day, I don't know. Depends on, and if he really likes school and wants to go, like, yeah, I'll send him. I'm not going to keep him home with me just for selfish reasons. But I know that, like, I might want to. But
Depends
again,
on your
like,
mood.
well, yeah. But then it's, it's hard when, like, some people have different opinions and think kids shouldn't go to school until they're kindergarten. Like, they're still babies. They don't need to go to preschool. They don't need to go to a young threes
it's like
program.
You're missing that child period. Like, you're pushing it too quickly almost. It's so hard.
Well, and there's such great benefits to sending them because they do learn so many skills earlier, and like they are, more socially mature. But then on the other side of it, it just depends on like the kids in the class, this type of school you're going to, because then they're surrounded by other kids that maybe don't have great behaviors, and then they're seeing those behaviors, and then they're coming out at home because they're learning different things at school, and they're exposed to more at school. So then there's like that part of it too. But I think you just kind of go with like how you're feeling and then how your kid's personality is and things like that. And again, if you try it out and you're like, God, this isn't working,
doesn't work,
then you can just pull them out, until they are ready. But I remember like my husband, Brett, he would cry every day getting dropped off at preschool, like just cry all day.
You remember
and
this,
so,
do you?
Well, no, his mom told me, but he got to the point where CJ just stopped taking him and he stayed home with her. And she's just like, it wasn't worth it. He was crying. He didn't want to be there. I didn't necessarily want him to be there either. So he just stayed with me. And then she had an extra time with him. So she has like another, like, perspective on it. Like, they're babies. They don't need to go until they're going to kindergarten because they're a baby.
We switched that with Hayden too, because we had her in full day, full day preschool, but she didn't like the nap time. So we ended up going back to the halftime or the half a day because she would lose it at nap time. And that was the stressful part for her. I don't know.
It can be hard for kids to sleep in a different area.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had kids that had trouble with it, but then like you just kind of stick it out and you might do extra things like with them during that time. Cause like kids at like my pre-K age, like I had kids that were 4 and 5. So some were growing out of naps. Some still needed naps. I never made anybody sleep, but if they they still were expected to do something quiet, like they had like certain things they could do, but I wasn't ever gonna like, you can't like force anyone to sleep, but they're not. Yeah, but they're also like, they weren't gonna be disruptive for the other kids that needed to sleep. So it's like hard when you're navigating that. But then also like I would have parents that would say, hey, can you wake them up because they won't sleep when they get home? And I'm like, I can try, but if they're not getting up, I'm not like shaking them awake to wake them up because they clearly need the sleep. Yeah. So I'm like, I can do my best to give them activities or to like make them not sleep. But if they fall asleep, I'm not going to wake them up because it sounds bad, but one, that's not my problem. And I'm not waking up a baby that like clearly needs the sleep. Yeah. And that, they're going to be crying, like that's going to ruin the rest of their day. I understand your struggle, but it's like
the whole classroom environment would change after,
Well, and it's hard because it's like, I can try to like, hey, wake up. I'm not gonna like, they're, out. You only can do so much. One last thing, it's like, I'm a teacher. I could only do so much. I can't magically make your kids stay awake if they're tired. I can't shake them awake. I'm like, that's just part of being at school. If you need them to not sleep, start on the weekends, like maybe transitioning them out of their nap. It's like there's certain things that like you just have to figure out. And part of that is a nap time at school. It's a requirement, for our program was to have a rest time. And so it's like, there's certain things that you can accommodate and that you can't. Yeah. And I know like it gets tricky as like a teacher and trying to help the parent and then not having their night be crazy and the kids up till 10 because they took a nap till 1 or 2. It's like, there's only so much we can all do. But as far as Bo goes, I really don't know. I'm pretty sure we'd put him in a preschool program,
Yeah.
but definitely young fives because of his birthday. And then our baby girl, she's going to be born in August. So that's basically like around
Like
my
you.
birthday. So like me. So
Yeah.
honestly, I probably will do the same for her. And I was thinking, I was like, if I don't put her in young fives, but I do put Bo in young fives, they'll only be a grade apart.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be 2 grades apart. And I'm like,
yeah.
so it could be fun if they were only a grade apart. Also scary, though, because then you have kids in college, like, right after the other. And it's like, money, if they want to go to school, I guess. But, like, in some capacity, they'll be doing something. But,
yeah.
So I was thinking about that, too. But I'm like, gosh, I just remember being so young and immature.
So
Great.
young.
It's just 17, we graduated. We weren't 18 till the end of the summer.
Yeah.
And then it's a new 18. Like, you're still not even mature. Like, you are still, like, a baby.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I turned 18 in January the year I graduated. So I was, 6 months in.
which is, pretty normal, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of our friends would turn 18, like, halfway through the year. Some of them were, like, December or whatever. But it's, like, our year, a lot of kids like that I knew were younger too, because I think that's just like how it was. Like I said, they didn't really push young fives or have young fives programs around. So it was like Sid and I were August, like our friend Kristen, she's July or June. And then like there were some October birthdays and September birthdays in there. But still, like, I'm like, now they expect you to know so much at school. Like, just as a pre-K teacher, all the stuff that they were expected to know just at the end of the year was basically a kindergarten, if not more, than when I was in school.
Know your alphabet, like
all your sounds, vowels, like,
obviously recognizing and
shapes. But it's like not even the basic stuff. It's like they wanted them to be able to like identify a shape, explain why or how you know that is a shape, and then be able to do like 3D shapes, and then like obviously writing, not only recognizing their name, being able to write their name, last name would be a perk. I mean, they even wanted them to know their phone number and address going into kindergarten.
That's
which
interesting.
is developmentally like doesn't really make sense. And then like even rhyming, like rhyming's not a developmentally appropriate like thing. Kids can rhyme at that age, but it's like not
intentionally almost.
Right.
Just kind of happen. Yeah.
And then, every kids are different. Some kids just are a little bit more ahead than others, but like it's just like they want you to know, identify all of the letters, uppercase and like lowercase, all of the sounds, multiple sounds too, because some letters have 2 sounds, so they want them to know all the sounds. And then even like the vowel sounds and like what a vowel is. And like
and they want you to identify vowels, like consonants and vowels. You need to do I mean,
well, and then just being able to like socially be able to interact with kids and solve problems and be able to share and take turns and
as like an only child. You know what I mean? Like
that's why they want them to learn that in school. So that's why they tell them, put them in a 3-year-old program, put them in preschool, go to the library every week, do groups. Like that's why
they just put so much extra on parents. I mean, I get it, but then it's at the same time, it's like, if you're a working parent, that's hard. Like if you're
and the flip side of it, they put a ton on teachers now, because parents don't or can't do it. So then they expect you to also like parent their child when you're just trying to teach them. So there's like 2 sides of it. Like there's the teacher side of me is like they put way too much on us to just like do things that you should also be doing because it's your child. Right. But then the parent side of me understands, especially if you have more than one kid, like just the day-to-day, if you're working, you have things to do. Like, it's hard, so you have to, like, intentionally make time. And you don't have to, like, sit down at a desk and do flashcards and stuff like that. You can literally be in the car driving and be like, oh, like, tree, that starts with T. And, like, just, like, you just have to, like, do things when you can, in the car, eating breakfast, have them tell you the letters on the cereal box. Like, there's just so many things that you can do, but it's just knowing, it's knowing how to do those things.
That was what my next point was going to be. I'm like,
I know, but it's not everyone knows.
I mean, I know a lot because of what you've said, but at the time, I didn't necessarily know especially with Hayden, I mean, that was 15 years ago, 14 years ago, but I didn't know what she needed to know or what, like how, I didn't think in a teacher, I didn't have that teacher.
Well, right, you wouldn't, and most parents wouldn't,
do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Unless you're actively searching for something online or talking to the teacher, or if you have a teacher that's helpful, that's always nice. Yeah. But it's like sometimes they're just like, I'm done. I'm done teaching. But I think that's the other thing too, is there's more stuff available now. I mean, go on Pinterest. There's a ton of stuff there. Yeah. But the thing is just like people sometimes just don't do anything because they don't know what to do. And then
it's not fun.
That's totally valid, but
it's like.
Well, and sometimes I think people think, I just have to show them flashcards and they'll know the alphabet. It's like A,
that's how we learned. You know what I mean? Like that was
right.
like
hooked on phonics and
right.
everything
Oh my gosh,
else.
hooked on phonics. We had that.
Well, even just like singing songs and things like that is super helpful. But unless you know what to do, like you just don't know what to do. And then you don't do anything. And then you're just like, I don't know. I'm trying to be the best parent I can be, but I just don't know what to do. I don't know what they should learn or not know
yet.
One
of the things, though, that I could foresee with all of this is, especially with the sounds of letters, teaching them the wrong sounds.
And that is a big problem.
And I feel like it has to happen all the time. Because the way that we learned is not necessarily the same way that they learn now. And you wouldn't think that it would be different with like the alphabet and sounds and just different things like that, but it is. And I even did that. I did that with Taylor, like I can't remember which one. There was two of them I was doing. And I had her
there's different
up because
there's different gestures based off of like the different program you're doing.
Well, yes.
Like, and so that can mess kids up if a parent's doing one at home and a teacher's doing one at school. There's different motions that go.
Yes.
So that's why it's good to communicate like at conferences or through apps or whatever like people are using nowadays to communicate with their teachers. It's like ask them, and usually like the teacher will provide information on the curriculum at like the open house or like whatever, but it's like get on the same like wavelength as like what curriculum they're using and like how they're teaching them the alphabet. Because like we would always do a song or a gesture that went with the alphabet. Like we weren't just singing the alphabet. Like there was a gesture. Like D says d, like a deer. Right. Like you're putting like the like and then like k for C, and you're doing like the C like so. There's different things that you do. And then if a kid is getting two different ones, they're getting confused because they're like, my teacher is telling me this is k. And then like then if a mom or a dad is going, C says, C or something, because it's just like who knows, and then like they're like the letters make two different sounds. So if they're really focusing on one sound and not the other sound, and it's maybe not the more common sound,
right? Which one they're learning with the smaller words now,
or they're trying to teach them to read before they know the sounds, because that is hard too. They need to know. That's why it's so important for them to go to preschool, because they will learn the sounds, because in kindergarten now they're basically starting to read.
Well, they are. And you know what? What's crazy?
You can't read. Sorry, real quick. You cannot read until your kid knows their sounds. I'm sorry. It won't work.
Well,
that's why it's so important to know your sounds.
And so with Taylor, we didn't know how far she was behind. She went to kindergarten. She went to, first grade, then COVID hit, and then that's when I homeschooled for the bit, because I discovered that Taylor didn't know her basic sounds. Like she didn't know them. So I literally had to bring her all the way back to like kindergarten and before, go from like the basics all the way back up, because she was not doing well in first grade. Like the teacher was saying, well, she doesn't like to read out loud. She doesn't really do any of this. She spells kind of odd. But they never caught that she just flat out didn't know the sounds.
It just surprises me that they didn't test her on her letter sounds and realize she can't name her letter sounds.
She didn't even know all her letters. Like she couldn't tell you every single letter in the alphabet properly. Like consistently. She would have them switch sometimes. especially like B's and
The
D's.
thing is, though, like usually at the beginning of a grade, they like do an assessment of where your kids at. Like we would do an ASQ assessment, and they even do these at the doctor for your kids too, to see where they're at. But we also would test their letters, their sounds. We had different, checkpoints throughout the year where we would see where they're at, what letters they need to work on, what sounds they need to work on. So it's like the awareness should have been there. Yeah. How did she slip through?
And that was 2 grades at 2 different schools because we moved in between.
So interesting.
That. And one other piece to this is her kindergarten teacher taught her completely different than her first grade teacher, and how like the sounds and just the style of how they learned. It was very different, and I can't remember what it was called, what one did. I can't. But it was like night and day for Taylor. So I think that helped cause this breakdown. But Taylor can cover this stuff up so well. Like she can memorize. Well,
that's the other thing. She's so tricky. Yeah.
She's just very clever.
Well, and that's the thing that gets parents too, is they will think their kid knows a letter or a word, and it's memorization. That's all it is. Because if you mix up the letters, it's not in like ABC order. If they can't identify it, they don't know it. They just know, oh, I'm singing the song A, B, C, D, They don't know it. You need to mix them all up and then give them uppercase and lowercase. And it's like they need to know that know the letter. It's like you got to mix them up. And you don't, that's the thing that gets parents the most, is they're like, my kid can read. They know and it's like, no, they've just memorized that is a cat. And they're looking at the picture, and like CAT is cat.
Exactly.
Like kids can memorize very well. And it's hard sometimes to know, like as a parent, like even as a teacher sometimes too, like it's hard because you're like,
teaching
let me
is
make
being redundant.
Right. And then it's like you have to also like not believe them, but you also have to give them challenges where they're not able to necessarily do something perfectly, because then you can figure out like, okay, they know that that's a C, an A, and a T, and that there's a picture of a cat there, and they can figure out cat. But if you put cat with like a dog and they still said like cat, it's like that doesn't say, yeah. So it's like kids are tricky, man. They can get you.
They're sly. Very, very sly. And we're going to stop there this week. Be sure to tune in next week where we're going to share some juicy stories of Sam's college days. So don't miss it.
Thanks for joining us today on She's Got It Together. It's been a real journey sharing and laughing with you all.
We hope you're walking away with a smile on your face and a bit more confidence in your step.
Remember, you're not alone in this crazy ride called life. We're all in this together, one day at a time.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and of course, share this podcast with all the incredible women in your life.
Join us next week for more stories, more laughs, and more real talk.
Until then, keep embracing your unique journey, and remember, you've got it together more than you think.